going on with the chip it is there, and what explanation were you given for the tech that you got?
I'll take the official questions. There wasn't an explanation for the tech that she got. I think it was pretty obvious that stuff was brewing, right? When the officials don't get control of the ball game, when they allow that stuff to happen, and it's been happening all season long. All season long. It's not just this game, it's been happening.
The WNBA finds itself once again drowning in controversy as head coach Stephanie White unleashed a blistering attack on league officiating. She criticized officials for allowing what can only be described as an out-of-control situation to spiral into complete chaos, refusing to eject players who had clearly crossed the line from competitive basketball into something far more sinister.
To WNBA Fight Night, or as some people are saying, WNBA Raw. What a game that was. We had it all. We had basketball, we had fighting, we had blonde on blonde crime. Oh, such an epic. Oh, goodness. But at the end of the day, it resulted in an Indiana Fever.
In this era, where every play is dissected under the microscope of social media scrutiny, Tuesday night's Indiana Fever versus Connecticut Sun game became a case study in how officials can lose complete control of a basketball game.
This is, of course, Sophie and Sheldon going down the floor. Sophie tries to wrap her up, and Sheldon gets to the floor, and all hell breaks loose. And Sophie said, I'm not having it. I'm not having it. We'll go. So there's that.
What should have been a celebration of the Fever's advancement to the Commissioner's Cup championship became overshadowed by a series of incidents that exposed the league's most glaring weakness: officiating that seems more interested in maintaining false peace than protecting players from targeted aggression.
So this kind of started it. They're going back and forth, and Caitlin like, hey, forget you. Boom, shoved her right there, right? Then Marina Mabry already shoving Caitlin. Right? She jumping into it, shoving Caitlin to the side, right? Now we get further into the game. Watch this. Watch how this happens, right? So you see Sheldon guarding up, playing pretty good defense. This is what I was going to give her credit on. She was not allowing Caitlin to penetrate, get into the paint, deny her the path to the basket, right? Boom, she bumps. Caitlin drives around. Look, good footwork. Okay, you stand in front of her. I give it to you. Boom, bumps again, spin around, boom. She's bumping, getting bumpy. And then that happened. I'm like, what was that? What is this play right here, man? Sheldon.
The tension had been building like pressure in a steam engine ready to explode, with the Suns' J.C. Sheldon and Caitlin Clark engaging in the kind of physical chess match that harks back to their Big Ten rivalry days. But what transpired in the third quarter wasn't basketball. It was a calculated assault disguised as competition, and the officials' response revealed everything wrong with how the WNBA handles player safety.
With 1 minute left, and all hell broke loose between J.C. Sheldon and Sophie Cunningham, and it is very clear the Indiana Fever, some of these girls on this team are finally fed up. Once again, WNBA, we're not talking about your basketball. We're talking about the WNBA WWE Raw circus that you got going on right now, and we all know this incident with Sophie stems from the incident that was clearly not handled correctly by the WNBA and the referees.
If you are enjoying, please subscribe. With well over 4 minutes remaining in the third quarter and the Fever holding a 55-45 advantage, Clark found herself operating near the top of the key, closely guarded by Sheldon. What happened next was a sequence that will be dissected for years to come, not for its basketball brilliance, but for its complete breakdown of professional conduct and official oversight. As Clark maneuvered with the ball, Sheldon reached in with what officials would later call unnecessary contact, with wind up and impact. Essentially, she poked Clark directly in the eye. The foul was obvious, the intent questionable, but Clark's reaction was entirely human. She grabbed her face, clearly in pain, and when Sheldon continued to engage physically, Clark pushed her away.
What is this right here, fam? No way you just reach for Caitlin's eyes like that. Her face, whatever the case may be. You reach for her head and you scratch her. What are you reaching for right here? What is that? Did she think she was going to shoot? I don't know, man. That's about the best I can give her. Maybe she thought she was about to pull up and trying to put her hand where the ball might be coming. But fam, you literally slapped her in the face, man. Slapped her right in the eyes, man. Come on, fam. Then Caitlin shoves her, right? Shoves her off of her. Like, get away from me, man. Get away from me. Give me some space.
This is where the incident transformed from a routine basketball confrontation into something that should have resulted in immediate ejections. Marina Mabrey, who had no business involving herself in the situation, approached Clark from behind and delivered what can only be described as a body check that sent the face of the WNBA crashing to the floor. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral. They knew they had witnessed something that crossed every line of acceptable competition. But here's where this story becomes absolutely infuriating for anyone who understands basketball, player safety, or basic human decency. After a lengthy review that seemed to take longer than a Supreme Court deliberation, the officials emerged with a decision that defied logic, precedent, and common sense.
Marina Mabrey body checking Caitlin Clark to the ground. JC Sheldon all over her. Riding her. Pokes Caitlin Clark in the eye. Oh, man. Caitlin Clark needs to start wearing goggles, folks. Caitlin Clark's going to need to start wearing goggles. Bumps up on Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark says, "Get your hands off me." And then here comes Marina Mabrey. Boom! Exploding Caitlin Clark like a safety coming downhill in the NFL. There was no flop there. Marina Mabrey did a straight beeline run to Caitlin Clark and checked her. You got Lexi Hull saying, "JC, what the hell is wrong with you?" This was all game, folks. All game. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever were getting checked. All game. The Indiana Fever were getting punked. All game. The referees let this physical style of basketball continue.
Sheldon received a flagrant foul for the eye poke, appropriate considering the wind-up and impact that crew chief Ashley Gloss later described. But then came the decisions that would ignite a firestorm of controversy that reached far beyond the confines of Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Caitlin Clark, the victim of both an eye poke and a blindside body check, received a technical foul. Let that sink in for a moment. The player who was assaulted twice in a matter of seconds was penalized for her unsportsmanlike reaction to being attacked. According to crew chief Ashley Gloss, Clark reacted in an unsportsmanlike manner toward Sheldon after being poked in the eye. Marina Mabrey, whose actions were so egregious that even casual observers expected an immediate ejection, received nothing more than a technical foul. Despite delivering what amounted to a football-style body check on an unsuspecting opponent, Mabrey remained in the game because, according to officials, the contact made by Marina Mabrey did not rise to the level of an ejection and did not meet the criteria for a flagrant foul penalty 2.
Sophie Cunningham is going back to the locker room, and I'm wondering, I don't know if she just got kicked out, but if they kicked her out and they did not kick Marina Mabrey out, then holy shit, because that's the next thing we got to get to. Mabrey, for that incident, that Kennedy Carter vicious slam to the ground she just had on Caitlin Clark, they did not throw her out of this game. And I called Stephanie White out on social media. I was like, this is the time where you as a coach, you've got to go, and I'm going to go old school, you've got to go full on Bobby Knight, Indiana Hoosiers, showing your ass out there for your players.
When the post-game press conference began, it was supposed to be about the Fever's advancement to the Commissioner's Cup Championship game. Instead, it became a platform for one of the most scathing indictments of WNBA officiating ever delivered by a head coach. What followed was a masterclass in controlled fury disguised as professional commentary. White's words carried the authority of someone who had watched this pattern repeat itself game after game, week after week throughout the season. This wasn't the emotional outburst of a coach frustrated by a single bad call. This was the calculated response of a professional who had reached her breaking point with systemic incompetence.
This is what happens, right? This is what happens. You've got competitive women who are the best in the world at what they do, right? And when you allow them to play physical and you allow these things to happen, they're going to compete and they're going to have their teammates' backs. It's exactly what you expect, right? Out of fierce competition. So I started talking to the officials in the first quarter, and we knew this was going to happen. You could tell it was going to happen. So they got to get control of it. They got to be better. They got to be better.
Can you specifically?
A documented pattern has been building since the season's opening games. Statistics revealed that of the league's flagrant fouls, a disproportionate number had been committed against Clark, creating a narrative that the league seemed determined to ignore. As if the third quarter chaos wasn't enough, the game's final minute provided another textbook example of how officials can completely lose control of a contest. With the Fever comfortably ahead 87-70 and the game essentially decided, J.C. Sheldon secured a steal and raced toward what should have been a routine transition layup. Sophie Cunningham, the lone defender with a chance to prevent the score, made a decision that would result in her ejection and further expose the officials' inconsistent approach to player safety. Rather than allowing an easy basket in a game that was already over, Cunningham wrapped up Sheldon with what officials would later classify as a flagrant 2 foul. That happens in basketball games when players try to prevent easy baskets. What wasn't professional was what happened next.
J.C. Sheldon is going up for a layup. Sophie bear hugs her and takes her to the ground. What I will say is Sophie did not grab her and throw her to the ground. She didn't body slam her. She didn't do anything, in my personal opinion. Maybe I'm biased here, but I'm gonna give you guys my straight up honest opinion on this. She bear hugged her, took her to the ground. Yes, it was intentional. It was absolutely intentional. It was, to me, payback for what was happening the entire game. But she did it in a way that she wasn't gonna injure JC. She was just making it known, like, if the refs aren't gonna handle it, I will handle it. We'll take care of it, but this is not what you're going to do when you come into our house. It was an intentional foul. It was a hard foul. She brought her down. But with that, you guys, JC Sheldon got up and she was ready to go. So
Sheldon got up from the foul and immediately engaged Cunningham in a confrontation that quickly escalated beyond verbal sparring. Lindsay Allen of The Sun also became involved in the altercation, turning what should have been a routine foul call into a 3-player ejection situation. The officials' response was swift and decisive. Cunningham received the flagrant 2 and automatic ejection, while both Sheldon and Allen were ejected for escalating the altercation and fighting. The contrast with their earlier decision-making was stark and revealing. The juxtaposition of these two incidents within the same game created a perfect case study in officiating inconsistency that would make legal scholars weep. In the third quarter, Marina Mabrey delivered a blindside body check to an unsuspecting opponent and remained in the game. In the fourth quarter, Sophie Cunningham committed a hard but legal basketball foul and was immediately ejected when the situation escalated.
Sophie Cunningham, J.C. Sheldon going up for a layup, puts her head down like a running back, exploding through the hole. Sophie Cunningham wraps her up, tosses her little ass to the ground, says, "What's good?" And then Lindsay Allen goes after her along with J.C. Sheldon and Sophie Cunningham. Look at Sophie Cunningham, taking it 2-on-1. Sophie Cunningham going 2-on-1 underneath the basket. Sophie Cunningham, salute. 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 Sophie Cunningham did her jail son. I can't let you get close, Vanderlei. I can't let you get close. Oh, I love to see it.
The message was clear and disturbing. Hard fouls committed in the flow of basketball warranted ejections, while targeted attacks on star players warranted technical fouls. The officials had essentially established that protecting leads was more serious than protecting players. Stephanie White's frustration with this double standard was palpable in her post-game comments when asked to elaborate on what getting control of the game meant. Her response was as direct as it was damning. Call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor, and consistently call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Not just if somebody swings and misses. Consistently call the fouls. White's criticism extended beyond her team's specific situation, addressing what she clearly viewed as a systemic problem affecting the entire league. I've seen quite a few dust-ups in the league so far, so I think it's a league-wide issue, she stated with the authority of someone who had observed the pattern across multiple games and opponents. Bad officiating is bad officiating.
Can you specifically detail what you mean by get control of the game, just to be in your words?
Get control of the game
Call
is
a
call the
foul.
fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Right, and consistently call the fouls that are actually happening on the floor. Okay, not just if somebody swings and misses, right? Like, consistently call the fouls.
Coach, do you think it's something pertaining to your team, or do you think this is a league-wide issue?
Well, I've seen quite a few dust-ups in the league so far, so I think it's a league-wide issue. I mean, bad officiating is bad officiating.
Her words carried additional weight given her previous fine from the league for criticizing officiating after a loss to the New York Liberty. This wasn't a coach speaking carelessly in the heat of the moment. This was someone who had already paid a financial price for speaking out and had decided the cost was worth it. She explained, with the weariness of someone who had watched the same broken system perpetuate itself season after season, White's most devastating critique came when she addressed the evolving nature of the game and the officials' failure to evolve with it. The game has changed so much. Players are faster, they're better, they're bigger, they're stronger. They're as good as they've ever been. They're as athletic as they've ever been. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Then came the knockout punch. Everybody's getting better except the officials. This wasn't just criticism. It was an indictment of a system that had failed to adapt to the modern game. While players had become faster, stronger, and more skilled, the officials had remained static, unable to manage the increased pace and physicality that defined contemporary women's basketball.
Every year when we have our league meetings in the fall and in the spring, we say the same thing over and over and over. And nothing has changed. So, I'm not sure outside of continuing to submit clips, continuing to talk about it. Like, look, their job is hard. Their job is hard. Their job is hard, right? Their job is hard. The game has changed so much. Players are faster, they're better, they're bigger, they're stronger. They're as good as they've ever been. They're as athletic as they've ever been. The game is fast now. Things are happening quickly. Everybody's getting better, except the officials.
What happened in Indianapolis on Tuesday night wasn't just about one poorly officiated game. It was a microcosm of everything wrong with how the WNBA approaches player safety, competitive integrity, and professional standards. The league's failure to protect Caitlin Clark, its biggest star and primary driver of fan interest, while simultaneously punishing her for being targeted, revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of both basketball and business. The crowd's reaction throughout the game provided a stark contrast to the officials' tone-deaf decision-making. Fans instinctively understood what the referees had missed, that some actions crossed the line from competitive basketball into targeted harassment. Their sustained booing of Mabry and Sheldon after the incident wasn't just emotional reaction, it was a collective recognition that justice had not been served. Stephanie White's willingness to risk another fine by speaking out revealed the depth of frustration within the coaching ranks. This wasn't an isolated complaint from a single coach. It was the culmination of systemic problems that had been building throughout the season.
Come on, fam. What are you doing? Then you blindsiding Caitlin. That's crazy work. That's crazy. I'm surprised Marina Mabry got away with that. I'm surprised she got away with that. I thought somebody was going to chin check her and talk to her. I'm surprised. But she ended up doing that and still got a chance to stay in the game. Still was catching crazy boos every time she touched the ball. Crazy work, man. Even Caitlin like, bro, what in the world? Like, I think she dropped a WTF right there. Like, she's like, what's up with this? What do we do this at? Like, come on, fam.
White's press conference ended with a challenge that the league can no longer ignore. You've heard every coach talk about it, so I don't know what the answer is, she said, essentially throwing down the gauntlet for league leadership. The message was clear. If coaches across the league are saying the same thing, the problem isn't with the coaches. The solution isn't complicated, but it does require the WNBA to acknowledge that their current approach isn't working. Officials need better training, clearer guidelines, and consistent enforcement of player safety rules. Players who target opponents should face immediate and severe consequences, regardless of their team affiliation or the game situation.
Mind you, the reporters at the time, the announcers here are saying, Of course, Marina Mabrey is going to get ejected because that was unwarranted. She literally came out of nowhere and chucked Caitlin Clark. There should be a flagrant one, of course, on JC Sheldon because she swiped her and hit her in the eyeball. Whether it is intentional or not, you can still have a flagrant a flagrant foul called on you, whether you are trying to intentionally hurt somebody or not. But this is what they called, you guys. This is what they called. Caitlin Clark, Marina Mabrey, Tina Charles were assessed with technical fouls on Tuesday. Caitlin, Marina, and Tina Charles. Technical fouls. That's it. Technical fouls. That's it. And JC Sheldon was assessed with a flagrant 1 foul, and no players were ejected.
Most importantly, the league needs to recognize that protecting stars like Caitlin Clark isn't favoritism, it's good business. When the face of your league is being targeted with flagrant fouls at unprecedented rates while receiving technical fouls for being victimized, you're not just failing as a sports organization, you're failing as a business. The Indiana Fever advanced to the Commissioner's Cup Championship, where they'll compete for a $500,000 0-cents prize pool. But the real prize would be a league that prioritizes player safety over manufactured drama, competitive integrity over social media engagement, and professional officiating over amateur hour decision-making. Until that happens, Tuesday night's chaos in Indianapolis will remain a perfect example of how the WNBA's officiating problems are undermining everything the league claims to stand for. Stephanie White went off on officiating because someone had to, and her words deserve to be heard by everyone with the power to fix this broken system.